Welcome back to the Weird and Proud podcast.
Harmonizing
It's Sam and
that
James.
James
Wow.
did not harmonize well, but
I
I threw that
know.
in without telling you I was going
I
to do it.
know. That's okay, though, James. You tried your best.
We're
You gave
practicing.
Yeah, we're practicing.
That
we're
was
warming up.
a live practice for all of you rather than us practice behind the scenes. We'd rather just do it.
We'd just
Yeah.
do it. Yeah, right off the top. Hi, everyone. Hope you are having a great week so far. The world's still turning. The aliens haven't landed yet, but we can only hope. We can only hope. We have a great episode for you guys today. We have a topic that I have gotten so many DMs about. Probably one of my top requested weird topics to look into. And we have also an amazing James corner with you getting some personal requests. And this is what I love is that a lot of you guys have DM'd and or commented things you want us to look into, me on like the main topic and James on like his little science corner. And we got a great question that even I'm really curious about.
I love questions about science and the science corner. Please ask about any realm, anything you got.
Like if you guys have specific things you want James to
I will dive deeper.
Yeah, he loves all that stuff. He, is a science nerd. So, I mean, obviously he's not a professional, but he can give his perspective and through his research.
I mean, if you want to pay me for it, then I am a professional. So I'm prepared.
So great show. James, how are you doing? Are you hanging in there?
NFL draft this week.
Really big things,
Milwaukee
guys.
Brewers.
I was just asking him, I'm like, it's been too quiet. Like, there's not a ton of sports, I feel like, going on right now.
And Milwaukee Brewers are one of the best teams in the league in Major League Baseball. The Milwaukee Bucks kick off playoff basketball tonight, like literally now. Oh, and NFL draft on Thursday.
I can't believe the draft is already. I feel like we just ended the season. Like, everyone needs to calm down.
The NFL is it's a year-long process.
Oh
we still have June 1st, post June 1st cut date. That's a huge free agency day.
Yeah.
Very important.
Well, I'm just so excited for you.
Mock drafts for fantasy football are right around the corner.
Oh my God, that's so terrifying. James, literally.
So right around
how many did you do last season?
More than some.
More than you want to admit. Okay.
Yes.
Well, guys, we do have some live shows coming up. We have so much fun travel coming up
soon.
The
live shows.
Florida is one hell of a drug. That's a new Taylor Swift song. If you know, you know. But we're going to Florida this weekend.
Is that one of the lines from the song?
Yeah, she's a song called Florida! Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Exclamation point!
Interesting.
So we're going to Florida this weekend. If you're in Fort Lauderdale, if I don't see you there, listen, just know that like you're gonna miss one hell of a night. And then right after we get home from Florida, we go to Spain for a week. And then we're going to Long Island in May. We're doing New York City in June. We're doing Chicago in May. We're doing Boston in June. So make sure you get your tickets at SamanthaRamsdell.com/events. And all of them in one way, shape, or form, we will be able to meet you afterwards. Where like some of them have like certain like areas for meet and greets and can like more structure it. But if you hang out after and you can be patient, at most of these events, we'll hang out afterwards in some way, shape, or form. And obviously, James will be there for all of them.
And if you mention that you know us through the podcast, you will get
if you say I'm a weirdo,
attention from us.
Yeah, you'll get extra attention. Or I was trying to think like what like our podcast, like people who listen, like everyone has like, like they're like Taylor Swift, her Swifties.
Let's ask them. What do you want to be called? What
would
the listeners like to be?
Weird and Proud, WAP, Wappies. My wops.
I like weirdos. I still like weirdos.
I know weirdos is very like vague though. Like anyone can be like, like it might not be necessarily tied to this. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys like the wops, my wops, or do you like weirdos? Either one. We're cool.
You could put it on the Weird and Proud Instagram as a
poll.
We'll find out.
Or if there's another one, if I'm totally missing, but we were talking, I feel like wops or
call in
whips.
with suggestions.
Yeah, let us know.
DM it to the Weird and Proud Instagram.
Yes. Okay. And we're also going to be chill about the transition. Someone else recommended too, we could always get like pre-recorded. This is what like the really like big buck podcasts do, is like recorded transitions.
I
But
would absolutely love to have some pre-recorded stuff and drops, like
yeah.
in a cheesy radio show
Yeah.
that I get to hit a button
Yeah,
and drop
button is like
random
bow,
crap.
bow,
Oh yeah.
bow.
Oh, I want some laser
Bow,
fuck.
bow, 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 bow,
If I had
bow.
some like
Pew,
laser sounds,
pew.
yeah, exactly. If I had stuff like that or like a fireworks show,
Ooh, that
oh
would
my
drive
god,
everyone
I
insane. Thank
want.
God we don't, because that would drive everyone insane.
I will
You would
drive.
be
I
reckless.
want so
You would
bad.
be reckless. Okay, let's just do an overview of the topics really quickly.
Pew,
Pew, pew,
pew.
pew,
I'm
pew.
practicing.
We're gonna talk about a teeny tiny bit about a weird watch recommendation, Baby Reindeer. Everyone's talking about it. Then we're gonna do the weird topic of the week is Dyatlov's Pass. And again, if you know, you know. If you don't know, you're in for a hell of a story. And then James is going to do his weird corner on red light therapy and like infrared. And it's like the new hot thing that everyone's doing. Everyone, in some way, shape, or form, all these wellness centers have red light therapy. It's supposed to be good for your skin and blah, blah, blah. So James is going to touch on that. Someone actually wrote that in. Have James look into this for me, because a lot of these, like, some of these healthcare companies like sell these masks that you can buy for like $500, and like people do that and like sit, and it looks like they have like they're like a robot with a mask on they wear
Yeah,
every night.
I found a cheaper way for everyone to do it.
Oh, okay. And then of course we have weird secrets. Of course, we have a glorious Gorgina list of weird secrets for you, per usual. So without further ado, let's just get into the weird watch really quickly. Everyone's talking about it. Baby Reindeer on Netflix. True story that the actor in it is actually playing himself. He's the one who wrote the story, helped direct it, and he's playing himself. A story about stalking, and it's a dark comedy, but at some points it's extremely dark. What were your thoughts, James?
There was some funny to it. I liked
Yeah.
it better as more of a almost a
Yeah.
soft thriller genre.
For sure.
Like thriller without a bunch of the killing and stuff, but
Yeah.
there's some tense moments.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it more as a thriller than a dark comedy.
And some really triggering moments. Like, there were a lot of warnings on episode 4. If you know, you know. If you haven't seen it, but like, it was. I did
worth
not
it.
expect that, but it does. It explains so much, and it really, like, I've seen a lot of interviews with him, and a lot of people are putting a lot of blame on this guy, of the actor, of like how he like let this happen, this woman stalker, into his life. And he's like, a lot of the times, like, stalking, like in these suspense thriller movies that you see in movie theaters, it shows like this sex, it's built on like, kind of like the sexy idea of this random person in a dark alleyway, like sexy in a way of that it's like, ooh, some mysterious, yeah, like some random person that you don't know, you're home alone, you get the
Pause for a
phone
second.
call. Yeah.
Just imagine if at my disposal I had like creepy, eerie music to play in the background while you're telling that story. I'm just painting.
No,
I'm just
totally.
painting an audio
But
picture
making
for you.
like giving you the opportunity to be a DJ is terrifying.
I need this.
Maybe
One
we start
episode.
small with like one
Nope.
button.
I'm finding this.
Okay,
This is
sure.
happening.
Yeah, that can be on your time. But so he was doing this interview that was saying, he was like, but most of the time, like almost all, like abuse and assault, not almost all, but like he was saying, it's over 50% that abuse and assault is by someone someone you've let into your life. I'm gonna punch you in the face. So it's an interesting way of telling this. I mean, it's a true story, but it's like interesting way of like, that we haven't seen.
Is it one of those based on a true stories?
No, that is
like they're parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah, like all the text messages
A
and
lot of that
emails
stuff
were
is
all real. A lot of the situations were all real, but he says he never ended up. Well, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but like he never says what the woman's name was. Like, we still like don't know who it is. He won't even describe her.
Have you seen the meme or the story about, and I don't know at all if this is real or not, I'm just throwing this out at random. Did you see the one about, I think it was Zac Efron or a Zac Efron-like actor who had a stalker, and apparently
What?
they had a stalker who would like be outside their apartment every day and eventually just like asked the stalker to go to coffee, and he just talked about all his problems, and the stalker stopped coming there. I don't know if that's
I
true
did
or
hear
not,
about
but I've seen
this.
it so many times. It could be a total internet rumor,
I
but
did
I
hear
just think
about
it's
this.
hilarious
I
that
did
that
hear
sort of
about
story.
that. I
Yeah.
can't remember who it was, but
Now I need to fact check
100%.
that.
That's
Yeah.
so
He
funny.
literally approached the stalker realizing that there wasn't really a threat and just decided to start talking about all his issues and problems in life.
Yeah, like
The
totally
stalker went
turn them
away.
off.
Like, don't meet your heroes, right? You never meet
Yeah.
your heroes. But he used that theory for his favor. So this person stopped
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
to him.
yeah. Oh
I
my
got to
god,
find out
that's
if that's
crazy.
true
I
now.
forget. I saw that somewhere. I can't remember where I saw
I
it,
know
but
it's
I
all
do.
over. Again,
Yeah,
who
yeah,
knows how
yeah.
true it is. But.
Yeah. But anyways, it's a good, it is like you get like pretty emotionally attached to this story.
Completely worth the watch. Really well done.
Completely worth watch.
Yeah.
Just, obviously trigger
Be ready.
warning. Be ready. I would, maybe just look what the trigger warnings are ahead of time if you are sensitive to stuff like that. But it's also like, again, it does have some funny moments and like these, kind of like lighthearted moments because he also is trying to be a comedian, the main
Yes.
guy. So that's where some of the comedy comes in, and it's just it's definitely worth the watch. Some people are like saying that it's going to win all these awards. It's like got 100% rate on Rotten Tomatoes.
Great production value, great writing, great acting. It's
Yeah.
got all the basics there
Yeah.
that it's worth checking out.
And the end, it just kind of wraps it up. The ending was a great ending too. So that's your weird watch of the week. But without further ado, we need to get into this topic that is the weird topic of the week that
I'm excited to hear more about this one. This is one
yeah.
of those that I didn't even know about coming into the show.
Yeah, you didn't. And what's funny is if you guys have seen the HBO show Night Country, um it's what was it part of? Why am I not thinking of the main?
True Detective.
True Detective. Oh my god, thank you. I was like, it's not True Blood. I wanted to say True Blood.
I think it's
also
the
a great show.
fourth version of HBO's True Detective.
Yeah, it was the fourth season of True Detective, which each season is its own standing, show basically. But so if you saw an HBO Night Country, this was around that time too that we had talked about it on the podcast. So many people are like, you got to look up this past incident, and I'm like, what? Because it happened in 1959. So you're like, okay, somehow I'm like not as interested, but it is such a bizarre case, and it was reopened in 2020, which is why like maybe Night Country like got inspiration from it because it was
Absolutely,
reopened.
yeah.
But it 100% got inspiration from the story. It is one of the most bizarre, like kind of still. I mean, it's kind of solved, kind of unsolved because they really will never know what happened to these people. But this is one of the weirdest mysteries cases I've ever seen. When I ask people what like their Roman Empire is, who like this kind of stuff, they will say this story in this case of Dyatlov's Pass. I hope I'm saying that right. It did happen in Russia. So if you guys haven't heard of this, I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and then we're going to talk about some of the conspiracies about what people think happened and kind of what they say it was the conclusion, that what the government says happened. Okay. So it was in 1959. Okay. And there are 9 Soviet hikers that basically died in the most bizarre way possible. And it was on February 1st, and it was in the Ural Mountains in this place called the Dyatlov's Pass. It was kind of like this valley in between these mountains. And these 9 hikers, they were super experienced, have done plenty of excursions before. They were from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. They were doing an excursion, something about like the weather and, studying the mountains, something about studying the mountains, whatever, that doesn't really matter. But they went on this excursion. They had set up a campsite on the slope of one of the mountains one night. And overnight, something caused them to run out of their tent, flee their campsite completely, and basically no clothes. Like one had no shoes on, someone had a sock and just underwear in like negative 30-degree Fahrenheit temperatures. Okay. The Soviet Union authorities determined that 6 had died from hypothermia and the other 3 had died from physical trauma. One had, and there was 2 females and the rest were males, 7 males. One had skull damage, 2 had severe chest trauma, 4 were found lying in a creek, and they were all like spread out within like kind of like a quarter of a mile, like spread out, there was like 4, 2, 2, two, whatever. One had missing eyebrows, like their eyebrows were ripped off. Another had a missing tongue, and two people had missing eyes. Like they're almost like they described them as gaping holes left in their skulls. And again, like some were dressed in like a shirt and pants, and some just had their underwear and just shoes. Some were bare feet. And some levels of radiation were found on two of the victims' clothing to make it even weirder. And the victims that didn't die of hypothermia, like the other three, there were six that died of hypothermia. The other three, it was like almost like they were in a car accident. Like their trauma was that bad. Like or like they had fallen from a really high like height. Because these types of, they were severe trauma. Also, two bodies were found separately around a fire pit, a burned fire pit, and their hands and their feet were burned. So in 1959, the Soviets were being also super sketchy about it. And this was like kind of a weird time too. Like this is the Cold War. This is again like around all the time of, everyone's heightened alert of what's going on over there. And they just concluded it was a compelling natural force and closed the case. And everything was private. Like they didn't let anything out. So that's why for so long people were like, a compelling natural force? Like, what does that mean? But it was all these closed documents, and really until it was like end of 2019, 2020, they had been urged in so much public outcry that they're like, let's look into this case again and see what really happened. Now that we, have better technology and, a lot more people that are interested in this. So here are the conspiracies. So that's kind of what happened. That kind of sets the scene. Okay. And it was, it was supposed to be a week-long trip. And of course, like 3 weeks, I think it was like February 29th, that finally they're like, okay, we got to go find these people. And this is what they found, like this weird, bizarre campsite. And also what was super weird is the tent itself was ripped from the inside. So someone inside, it almost looked like they took knives inside to break out. But the other weird thing too is that all the footprints showed that they walked calmly away from the campsite, from the tent itself. So there weren't like rushed, like running footprints. It was like someone had walked, like they had all walked calmly away in one direction, and then they all kind of go off on their own. So everyone's like, what the hell happened? And if you watched HBO Night Country, almost the exact same thing. Like that's almost identical to what happens in Night Country. And to those
That's
scientists.
exactly what happened. Yeah.
Where like one person's tongue was ripped out. Like some people died by hypothermia. Some had severe trauma. They were dressed weird. Of course, in Night Country, it takes place in Alaska, but very similar ideas. So now I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Because it was such a weird setup, but I wonder if people knew about Dyatlov's pass.
100%.
Oh, that makes sense. So here are some of the conspiracies. Originally, they thought there's an indigenous group nearby called the Mansi people, and they thought, technically this was their land. Maybe people came on and murdered them, but there was no footprints of outside sources that were anywhere near the site. And the trauma that was done to the people, they're like, this could not have been done by another human. And there was no like weapons, like there wasn't blood splatter anywhere, which was even weirder. So they're like, it couldn't be them. And also these people were really nice and like they had never attacked anyone before. So they're like, couldn't have been them. Another was maybe there's this whole theory around Katabic winds, Katabic. In this valley, maybe, there was this idea that by infrasound is the idea that the winds can create enough sound that causes physical discomfort and like causes you mental distress and causes you to panic and do crazy things that you wouldn't have done. Another idea, here's where it gets a little crazier, is military testing. So there was a military, there was like a path where the military was setting off what they called parachute mines, which were like these mines that blew up in the air, and they could hit certain targets in the air. But they didn't see any residue of like a bomb going off anywhere. Of course, some of the other craziers, there's aliens. And this is because there was another group of hikers nearby, about 30 miles south. And they reported around that same time, around that same day that they think this all happened, which was, they think, around February 1st, February 2nd, only a couple days into their trip. Another group of hikers saw, again, about 30 miles south of them, saw strange orange spheres in the sky, almost like fireballs falling from the sky. So that's what made them think, oh, maybe it was these parachutes, mines that the government was experimenting on, or could be aliens. And then, of course, it could be a Yeti or Bigfoot. But again, like, there would have been more, there was just no signs of other, like, outside forces coming in. Like, there wasn't like footprints leading out. There wasn't signs of, like, it was all like internal trauma what they had, which was so bizarre. There wasn't blood splatter everywhere and looks like some sort of animal had gotten to them. And really what they ended up saying is that, it could have been an avalanche, which is it's very similar to what they did in Night Country, which they were like, well, we think it was an avalanche. And that was kind of what they ended on, was like, it must have been an avalanche of some sort. But there's so many people out there that still think there's no way it was an avalanche. Like, there's some scientists that come out and they're like, there are no obvious signs that an avalanche took place. They were buried. Like, there were only a couple people that were really buried. Most of them were under light snow. There were like 4 of them that were a little bit farther away from the campsite. They were buried under like a foot of snow, but not 10 feet, 12 feet. Like, it was light enough that it couldn't have been they don't think it could have been an earthquake or an avalanche. And also, these guys were like super, super experienced and very smart. So they're like, they wouldn't have gone in an area or set up their campsite in an area where they knew avalanches were. And apparently, since 1959, like, they've done over 200 expeditions to this spot, and no one's ever had an avalanche take place. They've never seen an avalanche. And, like, just based on where it is in the valley, they're like, an avalanche would have never hit here. But of course, other people are like, well, you can't say never. Could have been a slab avalanche. And again, it's just so weird that, like, there wasn't panicked footprints. They were all so calmly walking out. If it was an avalanche and they heard an avalanche, you would think they would have just beat it, and ran as fast as possible. But they walked calmly out and they left all their belongings in the campsite. So, what do you think, James? What's your explanation, science guy? And I'll tell you what I found most people believe the theory is on.
What do most people believe?
Okay, so I think it's aliens or a Yeti, of course, or spiritual ghosts in the forest that haunt the
Which are
woods.
the 3 most ridiculous reasons that something like that would have happened. So that's great.
I mean, I think it's aliens for sure. But, like, there were literally, like, there's a documentary on Discovery Channel that they, like, 100% believe that it was a Yeti that came. But it really is a bizarre. I mean, like, is that not, like, the weirdest thing you've ever heard?
It's absolutely bizarre.
Yeah.
Let's go back to my Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually the right one. But also, let's go with the start of the story. The investigation was basically closed and attributed to natural things, right?
Yeah.
In True Detective, can we give spoiler? Can we just say what
Yeah,
happened?
we talked about
So,
True Detective before. If you haven't seen it by now, I
at
mean,
the
it's been out for
end,
a while.
you find out it's really just protesters that drive these people out of their tent.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
And what does a controlled exit look like? Not tearing through a tent in a knife.
Right.
So if there are military people standing outside of your tent screaming at you to get out of your tent, and
that was what a lot of people thought
and
too.
you
The
go
military.
out with a knife,
Yeah.
but then something happens. It leads to me that just military testing. The radiation on the clothes is interesting.
That's the other weird thing too, is
I
radiation
want
on
to
them.
touch on that in a second. There's an ancient theory, kind of almost a provable science about some of that. Now, I have to remember the exact moment. I should have looked it up on the phone, but we'll go back to why it's the military. the government would want to cover that up if something military related
Totally.
happened, right?
Totally.
They would want to say natural causes because they could still, it's the government. They can say, well, it's natural
Right.
when really they know there was some testing going on and the military probably just didn't know that there were people camping in that area.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
The burns in the hands and feet near a fire pit means that when nobody else was warm and they died of hypothermia, some of
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
that means there wasn't a fire in that pit.
Yep.
But it means that an explosion of some kind went off.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what if some of them were already out of the tent, explosion goes off, a couple of them get burned, and the other ones come out of the tent scared, but in a controlled fashion,
Yeah.
like
They're not
looking
running away.
around.
They're just
Yep.
more checking
They're
it out.
trying what is going on.
Yeah.
And the military, either around or maybe even not around, knows they're there, and they end up dying because they can't get back to their tent or find their way.
Yep.
Now, the radiation, it'd be interesting to know what the military was testing there.
Totally. And so I will say that's what a lot of people draw conclusions. The government had to be involved some way. Maybe, they got scared enough that they came out, but they didn't run away.
Now,
Yeah.
there are some old stories, and I believe that most of these start in Greece. It might have been Egypt, so you can fact check me on this all you want. But I'm going to just give kind of a story, but there is some historical truth to this.
Yep.
And it comes from some of what were quote unquote mystics and sayseers and fortune tellers back then.
Yep.
They had this tent that they would bring people into.
Yep.
That was near, I think, of course, like in a natural state near the ocean, probably near where a volcano used to be. And people would go in and mystics would do their thing or tell their story. And these people would have visions and see other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it turns out in the exact spot where this was occurring, there was both radiation and certain types of gases coming up through volcanic cracks
Making
that
them
cause
crazy.
that mental state.
Yeah.
If they're camping in an area that is near something like that,
Yeah.
there could be some level of hallucination. But imagine being somewhat hallucinating and military testing going on.
Totally.
Now the radiation theory is proven,
Yep.
and the erratic behavior and not good decision making has an actual basis.
Totally.
So that's what I'm wondering is the location of it and what was it near.
Yeah.
Russia is the biggest country on the planet, and especially at that time,
Right.
it wasn't
That
Russia.
time,
It was the
1959.
USSR.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it's Soviet,
It
but
was
Russia. Yeah.
gigantic.
Yeah.
So the amount of different structures and geological anomalies that could be involved in the USSR, and Russia's always been very protective of anything that happens on its soil.
Yeah.
So that would be my theory, is maybe a combination of the two.
Yeah. So here was what one guy said is like, after all this research, he's like gone viral on YouTube. He has like 10 million views of like what he thinks happened. At the end of the day in 2020, they still closed it saying that they believe it was an avalanche. That's what they're saying. But what this guy thinks is so again, like if it's negative 30 degrees, he was like, they had to have some sort of, because like you can say all these theories, but then you can go back to like there was no explosive material anywhere. There weren't any other footprints leading anywhere else. And the tent was ripped open from the inside with a knife. So
if there's no footprints and stuff, how could it be an avalanche? An avalanche would have covered the tent and covered the footprints.
Exactly.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Here's what the guy is thinking. So they think they must have had like some sort of makeshift stove or makeshift fire inside of the tent to keep them warm. So he's like, a lot of the times these guys will use like almost like an exhaust pipe, like going out of
Carbon
the
monoxide.
tent. So, right. So he thinks maybe it malfunctioned somehow, something happened where smoke started getting inside. So they start cutting the inside to let smoke out, but it overwhelms them. It's getting too much. They're getting, poisoned by carbon monoxide. So that's why they leave without all their stuff. That's why the knife cuts are on the inside of the tent, trying to open it up. And then the tent, they also did see like some of the stuff was burned, I didn't mention. So they're like, maybe they just were like, oh, screw it. We just, need to leave the stuff. No one could go back in the tent. So they're kind of like in this valley where there wasn't any wood. So they're where part of them were found were in this campsite in the woods. So he thinks maybe one of them was like, let's go to the woods. And once they're in the woods, we have a little bit of shelter because, of course, it's still windy and
Yep.
snowing. And that's when they tried to make their own fire
Fire.
over there. And at this point, like, they don't have, like, maybe they walked far enough that they don't know where their tent is now. They can't find it or they don't see it. It's in the middle of the night. So, they don't have the right clothes. So some of them, say, oh, we're going to, go up. There's also, there's somewhere showed that there were marks in one of the trees. It looked like someone tried to climb up one of the trees.
Okay.
So they were like, oh, maybe someone tried to climb up the tree to try and look out and see if they could find the tent because they were lost. And then, they kind of had spread out trying to maybe look for the tent again. And that's why they were all spread out. And maybe, the couple, the ones that had severe, maybe they fell through something or they fell or, like there's never, the thing is like there really will never be a definite
No,
answer.
that makes a lot of sense. My question is, if you're leaving in a controlled fashion and you have the wherewithal to think you need to go start a fire, why did you not grab more clothes?
Well, that's exactly like every like possible like conclusion where they're like, maybe you think it's like, there's always like, well, like you would think if these are super smart people, they're like, oh shit, this tent's gonna burn down. I better grab some of these jackets if we're going out in negative 30 degrees. Oops, sorry.
And the tent wasn't burned down or anything.
Well, they just think it was like full of smoke. It wasn't maybe on fire, but it was
Yeah.
so full of smoke that they were like, oh shit, we gotta get out. Let's
Did they test the tent for smoke particles? That would still be there.
Yeah, that I don't know. That I don't
Interesting.
know. But what a crazy, crazy case.
It's a great story.
And one of those cases where it is, because again, too, then like, why was her tongue cut out? Why, because the
there
girl,
now.
like the tongue,
Now there,
the
that's
eyes,
why
the eyebrows, and still like some of these injuries, it's like, even if you're hit by an avalanche, it's not gonna like, some people like had like literally, it looks like they were in a car accident and crushed in a car or like dropped from like 100 feet, it's like, it just, some of it still. So it's aliens. So basically, I've just come here to tell you that Russian aliens are out there.
alien yetis.
Or yetis. Alien yetis. Yetis from another planet so it's an alien, half yeti. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let us know if you guys have heard about this case. I'm curious what you think happened. If there's other things, of course, there's just like, then other kind of rumors or things that have maybe come up that, someone had said. Also, they had some pictures. This is the one other really weird thing. So they did take some pictures. This is 1959. So these are like old school cameras. And the last picture they took that night, they think very like shortly before all this craziness happened, there's a photo and it was just like a bright light in the camera. And they were like, oh, of course, some people are like, oh, that's an alien. Or other people are like, oh, that's the explosion.
I'm back to the explosion thing.
But, there are other photos previously on their trip, like the day before, where one of them had a burn jacket. So they're like, they could have had some issues with trying to work, trying to get the fire inside of a tent to keep them warm. And so again, we'll never know. RIP to these hikers. But what a weird, bizarre story. I'm curious what you guys think. Comment below, write to us. Let us know, what do you think happened to the hikers? But that has been a much requested segment. Again, I think it's aliens or government. I think the government maybe had something to do with it. It could just be like a combination of things. But it's just like the tongue is the part. And it's the same thing in the night country. They did explain why the tongue was ripped out.
Yeah, they explained it.
But just crazy story. All right, James, it's your turn to tell us some fun news.
I love the origin. So how did this all come about?
So for James Weird Corner, so I have, of course, people request certain things or have asked me to ask you certain things. And I thought this was a really great question because so many people, I'm sure you've seen on social media, get these red light masks or even like some of these wellness spots, like that place I went to in Darien to get the IV. If you remember, you guys, I went to this wellness spot to get IVs because I was felt like I was getting sick and I had traveling coming up and they literally like fucked up my veins. But they also had an infrared therapy bed
Yep.
where you
Well,
could lay in, and apparently it's like, the idea is really good for skin, it's good for immunity. And a lot of people who are really like into like, biohacking,
the
biohacking wellness.
biohackers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Say that you should like be in infrared light for like 15 minutes every day or whatever. What are your thoughts?
There's so much that surrounds this that I'm going to tread softly. I'm going to say some more things on my viewpoints on stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm going to repeat the Occam's razor thing. The simplest answer is usually correct,
Yeah.
right? Um, when it comes to the application of anything around health and fitness, what I found in my, gosh, what, 30 years of studying this stuff, probably,
Yep.
what I have found is that the the simple, boring stuff always works better than the next gadget, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's just keep that in mind when we're talking about this. Red light therapy and the idea behind light therapy has been going on since the time of the ancient Egyptians.
Yeah.
This is not anything new, much like low carbs. Nope, they were doing that in the 1900s too, right?
Well, even too, when I went to this other wellness place, they even would change just the lights, like the light bulbs.
Yep.
She would put green in because green, just like the green light versus like a white fluorescent,
The
makes you
first
happier.
the
Yeah.
first patent on incandescent lighting, which is what you're talking about,
Yep.
was by Thomas Edison.
Hey, Tommy
Thomas
boy.
Edison holds all the record for so many
I know
patents,
him.
and it usually wasn't always him doing it.
Yeah.
It was his team. He had a great team. He was great at marketing, and he just has a lot of patents. Well, incandescent lighting was something that they already knew even before Edison's time, was something that seemed to work. And again, in science is just about observing, right?
Right.
Science is not about always answering questions and get the answer. Our brains always search for the answer, just like what we were doing with the last tragic story, right? We
Yeah.
need answers. Well,
Right.
sometimes that doesn't exist, and that's okay.
I
But in
know, which
science,
is
they
so
start to
sad.
notice things.
Yeah.
How part of it is it did happen with, and now I might get some of this back. You can fact check me on some of this. Um, a scientist noticed that when some slides that had cells on them were in sunlight versus fake light, that they were behaving differently,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
So now we're in the realm of what's called epigenetics, where you can turn on different parts of your cells. Again, genetically, your skin cells are the same as your brain cells and liver cells.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah.
just different proteins and different things are being shown from
Right.
that,
Yeah.
right? So your skin cell, a squamous cell, is different than a muscle cell. Well, what red light therapy has been shown to do is to turn on a little part of the cell that we all know and we have all heard of, but we don't always understand it, the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the
Oh,
cell.
mitochondria, the powerhouse of the
We all
cell.
remember that from sixth
Photosynthesis.
grade.
Does it have to do with photosynthesis?
That's plants. Oh boy. Holy shit. Anyway,
Shit.
so where we're at is that this mitochondria, we won't discuss the history of the mitochondria, which probably was actually bacteria, which got into our cells, which helped us develop into the people we are. Sorry to the religious folk out there. But that's the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. We all know this.
Right.
We could really get into how it produces energy. But one of the big differences between our skin cells and other cells is skin cells do not have a lot of mitochondria.
Oh.
Skin cells also, your skin replaces itself multiple times over your lifetime.
Yeah.
All the time. I can't remember the exact, but you might even replace a layer of skin. What is it, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like your skin cells are made to die and fluff off. Most of the skin on your body is actually dead cells. And then once you cut deep enough and maybe a little blood or you start feeling it a little more, now you're down to your actual skin, right? There's a protective
Yeah. Yeah.
layer
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
So, what red light has been shown to do is to turn on the mitochondria into cells and help them divide and give skin cells energy, which are typically low in mitochondria.
So the idea then, if to translate this, is like, if you have more powerhouse in your cells, like the idea is then you'll have less wrinkles, like because a lot of them say like it give like it produces more collagen in your skin, and
I
it
I so co to
like how
I
does
didn't
that
look
translate to
directly into
like
that.
okay,
Here's what it translates to. It has been shown to help skin cells repair better and faster. It gives
got it.
them more energy. Meaning, now let's get into what you said. Should people buy a red light mask for
Yeah,
themselves?
yeah,
If you've probably had, like, for a long time, maybe, like, test it out. Some acne scars, like I
yeah,
have
yeah,
some
yeah,
little ones, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Or if you have other scars, and especially if you've recently had a cut or something that does need to be cleared up,
That would be
this
good.
seems to be a good application. In a traumatic experience, this red light seems to have a good application.
Yeah.
Now,
That's what I would agree, and that's what they even said too, like, a lot of the times it's good for scarring, for even when they fucked up my IVs, she was like, "Oh, you should come in and use the infrared, it'll help with the bruising."
that there are parts of that that I can absolutely see happening.
Yeah,
Now, much like in how the medical and health and fitness field has worked, is everything at the end of it in a good way. I'm happy with this.
yeah,
Everything's kind of money driven. And the
totally.
question is, do people market this or communicate it in ethical ways or not?
Right,
Now, the idea of red light therapy helping to induce fat loss, that's going to be a controversial one.
right.
I didn't look hard enough, but I didn't see a whole lot of
You don't
proof.
see as much of that, it's more of, like, less wrinkles, it gives you more collagen, of course,
Oh,
more
I've heard people talking
youthful.
about it boosts the metabolism and all
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
theory is if it does turn on mitochondria, yes. But here's the other theory: muscle cells have so much more mitochondria than uh,
Skin.
skin cells.
Well, here's the other thing too then, is like, like what's the difference between like an infrared light and just like a red light bulb? Because that's been another controversial thing, is that like some people are like, "Oh, if you're going to buy one of these masks, buy the $500 one cuz that's a legit infrared
It needs to be
mask."
infrared light, 100%.
And there's some other cheap brands are like, "Oh, it's only $20 for ours," but it's literally like a red
It's
light
just red
bulb.
light. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
filtering out. So when you stare at light, we all know if you put light through a prism, it's a rainbow.
Yeah,
So what it's doing is it's just
focusing on the red part.
focusing on the red part by absorbing everything else.
Yeah.
So when you see a color, remember, so
Yeah.
let's go back. We did wavelengths a long time ago,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Oh my god, we're like such little
Light
scientists
is a
on here. Well,
wave.
not me, but you.
When you see the color green, that particular color is absorbing everything but the green.
Yep,
It's reflecting green back. And the only way you can ever see anything is if light is reflecting off of it.
totally.
Okay.
Yep.
Same reason why, if let's say you are a stalker, and if you're inside, your lights should be off, because if the person is outside under a street light, they can't see you because there's no light bouncing off of you.
Right.
Right.
So, but like how, like again, like what is then the difference between like an infrared light and then just like a red light bulb?
Back to the idea of the cells that were reacting differently to sunlight
Yeah.
versus regular light. The intensity of the light that's being
From
focused.
the infrared is
Yep.
different. Okay.
So infrared light is going to be a different type of red light that's used in
Just like a red
just
light bulb.
absorbing.
Got it.
Yep.
So that was a great answer. I feel pretty good about that. And yeah, I would say, I mean,
Again,
do your research, of course,
the
but
more the trauma, a cut or something, your skin can help fix it, but you might have scars. There's a chance that this stuff, and there's dermatologists, I hope some of our nurses and dermatologists
yeah,
are listening. There's provable stuff out there that this works. I also have a feeling that it works better for some than others. I have
yeah,
just like anything,
just like
right?
anything. Totally.
But I think that there's some interesting research behind it. I do like I like everyone freaks out these days about cold baths and hot and all that.
Yeah.
So much of the stuff that's claimed about those is not at all true. There is some good in there for both of them,
Yeah.
but the majority of all the sound around this stuff is a lot of theory and stuff that kind of gets made up that it does all these things. And back to the red light and fat loss, the theory is if it excites the mitochondria, you're going to burn more energy, right?
Right.
However, you aren't shining red light on your muscle
And
cells.
through your entire
Yeah,
body.
it's
Right.
not doing that.
Yeah. Right.
That
Right.
is
Right.
not how this
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'd have to look more into mitochondrial excitation based on what happens when
Yeah,
you're
do
in a
your
mid
research, will
like
ya?
I could look into that more on the fat loss and some of these other claims. I need to hear the claims that people want me to explore though.
Yeah. Well, I should have you I should like give you a couple of the masks and have you do research on like the cheap one versus the
Well, I
expensive
got
one
my
and
little
see.
things here. We'll see if it
We
cleans
should.
up.
Oh my god! Any red masks, infrared masks out there? Send us some. We'll see if it works on James. Or if there are any dermatologists out there, what do you think? Do you think some of these, or do you think they're
Yeah, I
money
need to talk to a
grabs?
dermatologist about this more. But again, I think more just approach things critically, think about it,
Yeah,
right? But there does seem to be a little validity behind some of this stuff.
yeah, and just making sure, like again, because I think a lot of these like cheaper brands, unfortunately, the cheaper ones, of course,
I'm a
if
huge
it's
believer in the placebo effect too. I love the
yeah,
placebo effect.
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there that really, if you believe, your thoughts can change how your body expresses things.
Ugh,
It's
he's
been
one of
shown.
those, you guys.
But
Remember, we met
wait,
at Tony
you
Robbins.
are. You're
I know,
manifesting and
I know,
you
me
believe in
too.
aliens, and I'm telling you that I believe it. You want to watch a good version of it? Watch the Heal documentary on Netflix. There's a lot of crazy ass claims, and not all of them are true, but there's some level of it that it all very much does exist.
Totally.
Epigenetics is a real thing. Our body's gene expressions do change based on a number of different things.
Yeah,
Read The Biology of Belief by
totally.
Bruce Lipton.
Read it. Read it, he said.
Amazing book.
He said. That was kind of gorgeous. I kind of love this idea that we just like can ask you
I
like
love
nerdy
the
things
science
and you
corner
look into
better
it.
when I have questions to answer.
I know, because a lot of times you're like, what do you want? It is like shot in the dark. Like there's so much you could talk about.
I'm gonna find stuff that interests me. So do
Yeah,
you
I
want
was
to be
gonna say. So
bored?
if you want
Yeah.
to, no, and then I will cut it off completely again. So yeah, ask us questions. Either you can post it on YouTube below in the comments if you have a specific question for James, or you can DM Weird and Proud Pod. Um, or yeah, those are the two easiest ways to get it. Or of course, you can leave us a voicemail, of course, which
Again, I'm not condoning any products because I don't really know the difference between a $500 one
well,
or
that's
30.
why I want to like
But
give you the
I don't
information on
know for
them.
sure. I'd have to look deeper into that. But again, not condoning any of it because you'd never really know.
Yeah,
But
but that's the science behind
there
it.
seems to be some valid science behind some of this, and has to do with skin repairing, skin cells repairing, or at
Love,
least mitochondrial efficiency.
love it, love it.
We didn't talk about the ATP ADP cycle.
I think we're good on that.
We don't want to hear about
No,
adenosine
I
triphosphate.
think everyone's okay. Thank you so much, James, and thank you guys for that gorgeous question.
The nurses would like to hear about the ATP ADP
I don't
cycle.
think I think they've heard enough. I think they're good. They probably know enough about that. All right, it is time, you guys, for this is the one transition I will always sing, and I'm sorry, and I won't feel bad about it.
Transition. We are transitioning. I still love a good transition.
Secret, 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 secret,
Harmonizing with the
secret, secret,
secret song.
secret.
I think I nailed it. I think I got that one.
I think you killed it. It is time for our favorites. Well, one of our favorites, let's be honest. But weird secrets where you guys can call in.
Oh no,
Tell
this is
us.
my favorite.
It is. I know. I was gonna
Absolutely.
say it's
No, this is
technically.
my
I
favorite.
always love the weird topics. I mean, it just depends. Depends. But this is the segment where you guys can call in, leave us an anonymous voicemail / technically a voice message about a weird story, something weird that happened to you, a weird quirk that you have, a weird vacation you went on, a weird trip. We've gotten a couple of poop ones today, which we always love a bowel movement because that's always something that's weird and embarrassing.
Poop's always funny. Any age,
Poop's
any
always going to
yeah.
be funny. And a lot of us poop in weird places and do weird things involving poop. And I don't think we need to be so embarrassed about our poop, you guys. I think we need to take the power back from the poop. Poop has too much power over us, and we need to take the power back. We'll talk about that. But if you guys want to call in, leave us a weird secret, you can call in too.
SpeakPipe.
That's speakpipe.com/weird and proud pod. Again, speakpipe.com/weird and proud pod. It'll also be in the description of this segment of this podcast. And it's also in the bio of Weird and Proud Pod. So if you want to click on it, whatever. All right, James. How are you feeling? Are you ready?
Can't
Are you
wait.
ready for this? All right. Here we go. First secret.
Hello, Samantha and James. This is a person who listens to your podcast and follows Sam on Instagram. Huge, huge, huge fan. From Connecticut. Would move back if I thought I could be besties with Samantha. Also, house with so many animals. And I only have 90 seconds, so here we go. So many weird, not always proud, but we're going to make it proud right now stories. I attended the Boys and Girls Club of Greenwich when I was younger. And when they were redoing the ice rink, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed saying this. When they were redoing the ice rink, they had a ton of like working construction supplies, and because it was the 90s, no one was paying attention to any of the kids. So a friend and I would go and play in these huge spools of like plastic and wire and all of this stuff under tarps, and it was so unsafe and no one knew where we were because probably teenagers were running that place. Anyway, there was a time we were playing in there and I had to go to the bathroom really bad, and I pooped in there. And I always think about the poor people who were working on it, who found human kid poop and were so confused. Okay, that's it. Love you guys. Bye.
This just made me think. I've actually never been to the Boys and Girls Club in Greenwich, but maybe your poop still is there. There is part of you. Hopefully, there's not a murder there, and they find your DNA.
This is one of the best secrets that we've gotten. Like, I
Really?
love this. Like,
You love a poop in a tarp?
it's so random and
is so random.
hilarious.
But you know what makes me scared is there was a kid that was killed by like almost identical. They were redoing a gymnasium and they had like spools of like flooring,
Yeah.
and he tried to jump down in one and got stuck in it
Oh, Jesus.
and like suffocated. And it was like this terrible story. It was somewhere around here.
Really?
I don't think
Well,
it was in Greenwich. But anyways, so I'm like, oh my God, it was like the 90s. No one cared what the kids were doing.
I was more a kid. I was a kid in the 80s, and there was even less regulation.
Yeah, no
then.
one cared.
There was no
cell
fucks
phones
given.
tracking you.
No.
They were like, come home before it's dark.
And if you weren't home for hours on end,
They weren't really
and they
that
didn't hear
worried.
from you, nobody cared.
They're like, maybe by bedtime they'd be like, call the neighbor and be like, have you seen my kid?
Yeah, it did not matter.
Oh.
Like, very like, yeah, there was a lot. It was way different.
Yeah.
But this is also funny because she does describe the thing that I thought about before she said it was, imagine being a worker and finding that.
Yeah, they just find
That's
shit.
why it's one of my favorites.
Well, and it's like that, it's like who pooped the bed, then everyone's like, who did this?
One of the
like
greatest
blaming
It's Always Sunny episodes of all time.
And then the workers are just blaming to like who took a shit on the
We should
tarp.
watch It's Always Sunny tonight.
I know, it feels right.
Yeah.
That was a gorgeous secret.
I loved it. Simple but effective.
Simple but effective. And again, we all just be pooping in weird places. Like, I think, obviously you were a kid at the time. Like, you're not like a 30-year-old going and like pooping in a construction site. But if you gotta go, like, you gotta go.
And that's the funny part, because part of it, the innocence of being younger. Like, if you're 27 and you gotta poop in a, like, somewhere, like, you can find, you can control yourself then.
Right.
But if you're between 8, 9, 10, you gotta go. You gotta go.
I've shit in a lot of weird places. One time when I was little and I was locked in my room, I was grounded.
You pooped in your room?
I pooped in a Tupperware.
Really?
And I kept it under my bed.
You've never told me that one before. What were you grounded for?
Who knows? Probably being a dumbass. Probably like fighting
with your
people.
brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they would be dicks and then they would never get in trouble, especially my younger brother. He was the baby and everyone's favorite.
I love Ian.
Ian would literally
never could be in trouble.
Take eggs. He would egg my entire room, take my Barbies, strip them naked, and put them on all fours.
Can I text Ian about this right now? I'm texting Ian about
and
this
then
right
I
now.
would get in trouble for it.
I apologize
because I'm the middle child and no one cares about me. Does that explain? Like, hopefully that explains a lot to you. I never got enough attention as a kid.
I am so texting.
Can you tell I've never gotten enough attention?
Hold on, I'm texting right now.
Is it obvious or is it obvious? But yeah, it's. Who hasn't shit in a random place? Have you never?
What did Ian used to do? Ian used to
throw eggs in my room.
Throw eggs.
Also, you'd throw wet toilet paper. Like, they would make, like, this was like the thing. Like, when I was growing up, all the kids would like make wet toilet paper and then throw it on the ceiling and then wait for it to like fall on, like, people would do that in school, and then you like wait for it to fall on a teacher's head, or just like it would just be gross, and he would just throw up toilet paper wobs on my ceiling.
I just texted that to Ian, so
Well, yeah, I hope he knows the trauma he's caused me.
I'm dying.
All right. Anyways, let's get into the next secret. This one's also pretty gorgeous. Here we go.
Oh my God, do I have the story? And I don't know if I have enough time. So basically, I moved to a new country and I came here without my partner. And so I decided that I was going to buy a bunch of vibrators because I was like, yeah, there was a deal for like 4. So I bought a whole big box of vibrators, and I didn't know where the garbage was for the Airbnb that I was staying in. And so I just took the box and I threw it out in some random garbage. And then the fucking next day, I get a text message from someone, and they're like, they didn't take my garbage because all of the trash you threw in there, and all of the fucking vibrator boxes were in there. I was so embarrassed. Like, I had to have a full ass conversation with this person. They were nice about it actually. They're like, no, it's fine, I'll throw it out. You're new to the neighborhood. But then after the whole interaction, they're like, so how long have you been in the neighborhood? Like, trying to have a conversation with me. I'm like, no. So not so weird, but extremely embarrassing.
You know, this is another thing with vibrators and like toys. You know, a lot of these like companies, when they send, you know, they're like, we'll be discreet and like put, you know, like one of the companies that I've worked with, like they'll put like containers store.
Okay.
Because they're like, well, you know, we'll keep it secret. Like, you know, so you use a couple of vibrators. Who cares? I mean, I know it can be obviously, but for new neighbors, but like,
My question
you're having fun.
for you, one, there's a major similarity between these two first secrets.
Yeah.
It's somebody finding something completely unexpected and random somewhere else.
Yes.
One in a construction site, one in the garbage. I love it. I loved this story for the same reason I loved the last one.
Yeah.
Like just that unexpected.
Like your neighbors
find.
are probably like, wow, like, yeah, like she's just
And
loving herself.
just
She's
even
practicing self-care.
better, because we have, even here in Connecticut, not to do with vibrators, but we accidentally put something wrong in our recycling one time and they didn't take it. And I was like, oh, damn it. Right now I'm picturing that story, except with like a box full of vibrators.
Yeah, and you look in it, it's just
and
a
it's
box
like,
of vibrators.
that's hilarious. Now my next question.
Yeah.
What country were you in?
I
Because it
was
sounds
wondering
like
that
these
too.
people are a lot more open. Like Americans would be much more judgmental in
I
my
feel like
mind.
I feel like if you were in France, they'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Oui.
They want to be friends with you. Yeah.
Oui, ménage à toi. Hey, ho, ho, ho.
Is that what you think French people do?
Yeah, ménage à toi. Do you know what that means?
Threesome.
Yep. Ménage à
It's also a great bottle of wine.
Ménage à toi.
That's not the line.
I know, I forget, but it's something like that. That's a gorgeous story, but you know what?
Great story.
I think your neighbors probably had so much more respect for you after that. They were like, that's our girl. She belongs here. That's probably why he started conversation. He's probably like, wow, this girl's cool. Like, she's probably chill. She's just vibing off, flicking the bean every day.
Well, then the question also is, what prompted her to throw them all out?
No, the boxes. She was just throwing the boxes
she was just
out.
throwing the boxes.
I think that's what
I thought the
I think that's what
vibrators
you
were
meant.
in the boxes.
No.
Oh,
No,
see, that would have been way cooler.
No. But that's a Gorgina story. Thank you so much.
Literally, Gina story.
Gorgina. All right. Are you ready for the next secret?
I am.
Last. Okay, here we go.
Hi, Sam and James. I have a pretty embarrassing poop story. When I was in high school, I had pretty bad anxiety. So anytime I was in an uncomfortable situation, my stomach would just start to hurt really bad and I would have the squirts basically. And when I was 16, I had to go to the DMV with my mom to get to do my driver's test for my license. Well, we were waiting in line for a really long time and I could just feel myself getting really nervous. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, we have got to go because I felt it coming and I didn't want to shit my pants. And she said, okay. So we found a coffee shop nearby. And it was the kind of like the bathroom, it was only a toilet. It wasn't like men, women, or any of that. So I went in there. It was only one bathroom. And I blew up that toilet. Absolutely. And I went to flush and it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't flush. And I didn't know what else to do. I was just praying that there was nobody on the other side of that door. And thankfully, the poop gods heard me because there was nobody on the other side. And I just had to grab my mom. I didn't even tell her what happened. I just said, we have got to go. And we left. And I've never told anybody that story.
This just brought me so much joy because you sound like the sweetest girl in the entire world.
I was just gonna say, with the Southern Belle accent,
yeah, you just,
which I find charming as shit.
Yeah, and you
that
just
made the whole thing for me.
I like can trying to picture what you look like, and you just being like, and I just shit my pants. I'm gonna shit my pants.
I prayed to the
I
poop gods.
Yeah, sometimes I get the squirts.
See, now let's go back to if I had a soundboard, I would want to take like a little cut of that saying, and I prayed to the poop gods, and every once in a while I would just hit
blew
that.
up that toilet.
I want to capture that voice, and I want to use it for nefarious reasons.
Yeah, with the line, I destroyed that toilet.
I blew that thing up.
Yeah.
I love that. The Southern Belle voice made the whole thing.
There is literally nothing. There's no worse feeling in the world when you go into a bathroom, you take a nasty, you drop the kids off,
and it doesn't work.
And it doesn't flush. Is there more panic than that feeling of being like,
I have an
holy
option
shit.
for you. Which one's worse? That, or it does flush, but there's no toilet paper.
I can get creative. Use paper towel. Use your hands and soap and water.
What if it's just air blow dryers in there? Like, I would take my
shirt off and wipe my ass.
See, I can deal with it not flushing because that's not my fault. I could not deal with not having a way to wipe.
That's true. That is, I'd have to really, I'd have to think what other tools would be at my use. But there's just nothing, especially if someone is like, again, like you were right, like the poop gods were with you.
And if someone's right
outside, oh my God. And you're always like, oh my God, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. Like, it doesn't matter
Which
what you're like, I swear it wasn't
totally
me.
you.
It totally was you. But I had that. I've done that so many times, by the way, and it's always at a work situation. I did that when I was scooping ice cream. It was like my first job. It was literally my first day on the job in college. I was scooping ice cream. Literally, like, I don't know what I ate, but the toilet would not flush. And I literally had to scoop it with my hands.
Oh, yeah.
And put it in the trash. And then there's just shit in the trash. So every time, like, a girl went in, she's like, it smells like shit in that bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, it's so weird. That's like crazy. I have no idea.
That's so strange.
That's so weird.
Oh my God.
And then I had done that same thing too at like one of my biggest clients at my last job when I was in medical sales. And the toilet would not flush, and I just left, and I literally like had nightmares. I was calling all my colleagues. I'm like, I just like picture them like calling into like my customer support, being like, your rep just left, and she took a huge
How in the
shit.
world do you keep running into these toilets that don't work? I cannot even think of a time that I had that situation.
Because the poop gods aren't with me. Apparently, I need to get on the poop god side.
You know what? I did think of one, but I fixed the toilet.
Oh, see, I'm not smart enough to
figure
that out.
I knew. I took the top off.
And I panic.
I took the top off and I pull up the little chain and I fixed it. That's why I made it work myself.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I'm like, why have I not had that situation? Oh,
I panic.
Just fixed it.
Or especially if it starts to overflow. That's another one I've done too. That was another one that I literally almost died at a work event. I overflowed the toilet. I don't know if it really was me. It was, but
you got
that's
a healthy
another horrible situation no one ever wants to be in, being like, I think the toilet's overflowing. It definitely wasn't me for sure. Like, I just walked in there and
this happened when I came in.
It's so crazy. Oh my God, I could literally die. That's why I never leave my house anymore. I've done enough embarrassing shit in my life that like I just need to stay home. I can't leave. But that's a gorgeous story. Let us know if you ever shit anywhere or clogged a toilet. I mean, we always love a poop story, or really any weird story. If you guys have something weird that happened to you, something weird you do.
Today we talked a lot in the secrets. It was about leaving things for other people to find.
Yeah,
all
have you
three
ever
of them
left something weird,
or have you found something? When were you on the finding end of something that maybe you weren't expecting?
And you just found a shit and you're like, where did this come
Has
from?
anyone ever had to
shit in a
poop
tarp
on top of another shit that was already sitting in a toilet?
Ew, I've done that with yours.
Doubtful.
You leave some floaters once in a while.
I'm a thorough flusher.
Even you could flush 3 times and there'll still be a little floater.
Just like our Southern Belle said, I do always. You always tell me. I'll ask you first. I'll say it's common in our house every morning. Baby,
he
you
goes,
got
"Do
to
you
use
need
the
to use the
bathroom,
bathroom?"
and she'll go,
We have
blow
one
it up,
bathroom,
and
I
she
go,
says,
"Blow it up,
blow
babe.
it up.
Blow that puppy up, baby."
Yep,
It's pretty hot.
it's hot shit.
But those are some amazing secrets. If you guys want to call in again, call in too.
SpeakPipe.
So it's speakpipe.com/weirdandproudpod. Again, speakpipe.com/weirdandproudpod. And it's just like a voice message system. Like you literally press record, leave it. It's always anonymous, up to 1 minute and 30 seconds. But we love hearing from you guys. And yeah, any comments, feedback, questions, make sure you drop it below in the YouTube section. If you're on YouTube sections. I don't know. I just literally had a stroke. Or you can DM us on Instagram, Weird and Proud Pod. Make sure you're following along. We're almost at 10,000 followers on Instagram, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah, that would be amazing to hit that. We're also, again, make sure if you're not on YouTube, if you're not following on YouTube, make sure to follow along. And if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give this video 5 stars, the podcast 5 stars. Make sure you're following along on there too. It means a whole lot. You have no idea. And we love you guys so much. We hopefully will see you at one of the live shows coming up. If
Come
not,
to the live shows. We want to meet you.
yeah, if not, let us know where we should come. Where's someplace we haven't come yet? I feel like we've done a lot of East Coast. We've done some Southern states. Some Midwest. I know we need to come West at some point, but soon enough. But we love you guys so much. We hope you have an amazing week. And any last words?
Love you, weirdos.
We love you, weirdos. Bye.